Jackson Reed, a white billionaire tech mogul, stared in disbelief at the young black girl standing in the center of his Manhattan penthouse. "Your wife Vanessa is still alive, Mr. Reed," she whispered. "I saw her last week. She's in the compound, where they keep us." Security moved to escort her out, but Jackson raised a hand. Those words had cracked open 5 years of grief like a sledgehammer to glass. Before we uncover the twists in this story of betrayal and bravery, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, would you believe a child if they claimed someone you loved wasn't really dead? The Manhattan skyline shimmered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows as Jackson Reed poured himself another bourbon. At 48, the tech billionaire and CEO of Reed Innovations had everything except the woman he loved. Since Vanessa's presumed death in a yacht explosion 5 years earlier, Jackson had withdrawn from the world, living in self-imposed isolation. He'd made a brief appearance at the charity gala downstairs, donated 8 figures, then escaped to his sanctuary upstairs. The elevator chimed behind him. William Harris, his head of security, stepped out with a strained expression. "Sir, we've got a situation. A child got past security, says she must speak with you directly, claims it's urgent." Jackson didn't look up. "Send her home. It's midnight. She says it's about your wife." That made Jackson freeze. No one dared mention Vanessa anymore. Bring her up. Moments later, a girl no older than 10 stood in his pristine living room. Her worn sneakers and frayed hoodie were out of place amid the sleek furniture. 2 guards flanked her, one gripping her arm a bit too tightly. She could be hiding something. The guard muttered, suspicion in his eyes. "Let her go, Richards," Jackson said coldly, noting how the girl winced. She rubbed her arm and stood tall. "My name is Amara Johnson. I know your wife, Vanessa Reed. She's alive." Jackson scanned the child for signs of a scam. Marcus Phillips, his executive assistant, scoffed as he entered. "Mr. Reed, this is clearly a setup. How'd she even get in?" Amara didn't flinch. "I waited by the entrance. Slipped in when the guards were distracted." She turned back to Jackson. "I escaped from a place where they keep women. Your wife is there. She has a butterfly birthmark on her right shoulder. She told me to find you." Jackson's breath caught. That detail, the butterfly, was a private joke between him and Vanessa. No one else knew. Marcus stepped forward urgently. "Sir, someone is using this child to manipulate you. We should call the authorities." "No police," Amara said quickly, her fear breaking through. "They'll send me back or worse. Some of them work with the people running the facility." Jackson steadied himself against the marble counter. "Who's they?" "The people in charge. They're connected to Sovereign Industries." Jackson's pulse spiked. Sovereign was his biggest rival, led by Victor Reynolds, a man infamous for crossing every moral line in pursuit of power. "Marcus, William, out," Jackson ordered. "Double quotes, sir. I really think, now." When they were alone, Jackson gestured to the sofa. "Sit. Tell me everything." Amara perched on the edge, barely touching the cushion. "I lived with my grandma in Harlem. She died 3 months ago. I was alone until some people came pretending to be social services. They weren't. They took me to a place upstate, a fenced compound. The women there were kept separate and drugged." Her voice cracked slightly. "That's where I met Vanessa. She was different, more alert. They kept her in a special room. When they brought her to the common area, she told me about you. She said if I ever escaped, I had to find the man in the tall Manhattan building. She made me memorize a message." Amara took a breath. She said, "Tell Jack the butterfly still flutters. Monaco sunset. First date." Jackson dropped into the chair opposite her, his mind reeling. Their first date, watching the sunset during a tech conference in Monaco, was something even his closest friends didn't know. He reached for his phone. "No." Amara jumped. "Vanessa said not to trust anyone." not police, not government. They have people everywhere. Jackson stared at the girl, caught between rational doubt and a hope he'd buried years ago. Why should I believe you? Because I gain nothing by lying, Amara said calmly. She helped me when I was scared. I promised to help her if I got out. After a long silence, Jackson made a decision. You'll stay here tonight. We'll figure this out, but not through official channels. Morning sunlight poured through the penthouse as Jackson arranged breakfast for his unexpected guest. Whispered rumors had already started among the staff. Amara sat rigid at the enormous dining table, inspecting her pancakes carefully before taking a bite. No one here will hurt you, Jackson assured her. I know, she replied, but old habits die hard. William entered with a tablet. Sir, the background check is complete. Amara Johnson, age 10. No birth record of her mother. Raised by Eliza Johnson in Harlem. Grandmother died 3 months ago, natural causes. Per a death certificate signed by Dr. Martin Lawrence. Jackson frowned. That name sounds familiar. He retired 2 years ago. The signature was forged. Jackson's blood ran cold. Someone wanted her disappearance to look legitimate, William added. After dismissing him, Jackson turned to Amara. You said the facility was upstate. Can you describe it? In the woods. We drove for hours. There was a barbed wire fence, but it looked like a private hospital. The sign said Clearwater Wellness Center. Jackson jotted it down. They spent the rest of the morning going over every detail she remembered. Around noon, Marcus returned, visibly annoyed. Sir, the board is demanding an explanation for your absence at today's meeting, and there are, rumors about our guest. I'm handling a personal matter. Tell them that, Jackson said. As for the staff, they're here to work, not gossip. After Marcus left, Jackson overheard 2 guards whispering outside. Bet she's got some sob story to get the old man's money, one said. These hustles start young in those neighborhoods, playing the poor orphan for a rich white savior. Jackson's jaw clenched. If this girl was telling the truth, and all signs pointed that way, then the conspiracy he was about to uncover wasn't just dangerous, it was personal. The other man chuckled. Tale as old as time. Jackson cleared his throat loudly. Both men straightened at once. Consider yourselves unnoticed, he said coldly. One more comment like that, and you're both fired. Understood. Back inside, he found Amara by the windows, her expression making it clear she'd heard everything. They don't believe me, she said flatly. They think I'm trying to manipulate you. Jackson exhaled. People make assumptions. It doesn't matter what they think, she said, but it did. He knew it. The racial dynamics at play would only make everything more fraught. That afternoon, Jackson retreated to his home office to revisit the official report on the yacht explosion. He'd combed through those files countless times over the years, but this time, he searched with fresh eyes, looking for anything that didn't add up. The yacht had been found in fragments in the Mediterranean. No bodies recovered, not surprising, given the blast and the ocean's pull. The conclusion: a fuel line malfunction. Case closed. Too neatly closed. He picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. Diana Chin Investigations, came a crisp voice. Diana. It's Jackson Reed. A pause. Jackson. Been a while. For years, to be exact. Since you hired me to investigate Vanessa's accident, and then abruptly shut it down. The unspoken question hung in the air. I need to see you. Today. It's about that case. Another pause. My office. 1 hour. Diana's downtown office was understated, easy to overlook. She herself, sharpied and composed in her early 50s, studied Jackson as he entered, then shifted her gaze to Amara, who followed closely behind. This is unexpected, Diana said, motioning to the chairs across from her desk. Didn't realize this was a family meeting. Jackson simply introduced Amara as someone helping with the case. Diana raised a skeptical eyebrow, but said nothing. I need to know, did you ever doubt the official version of what happened to Vanessa? Diana leaned back, fingers steepled. Off the record, yes, that fuel line theory never sat right with me. The yacht was serviced just 2 weeks before, no issues reported, and the explosion pattern, it didn't match a typical accident, plus the timing, just after your quantum encryption breakthrough, convenient for your competitors. She glanced at Amara, then back at Jackson. But then you suddenly shut me down, said you wanted to move on. I was pressured, Jackson admitted. Not directly, but the message was clear. Keep digging, and others could get hurt. He'd assumed it was just corporate espionage, that Vanessa had been collateral damage. Now he told her about Amara, about her story. Diana listened silently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she turned to Amara. That's quite a story, young lady. Mind if I ask a few questions? Over the next 20 minutes, Diana questioned Amara, gently but thoroughly. Amara answered with quiet clarity, consistent in every detail. Finally, Diana said, either she's the most skilled con artist I've ever seen, or she's telling the truth, as she knows it. She looked back at Jackson. You realize how unbelievable this sounds, right? Your wife, alive after 5 years. I do, Jackson said. That's why I need your help to either prove this is impossible, or to find out if it might actually be true. Diana considered. There's something else. After you shut down the investigation, I kept a personal file, call it professional curiosity. She pulled a folder from her drawer. Victor Reynolds, Sovereign Industries bought the salvage rights to your yacht a few weeks after the explosion. Paid a premium to have the wreckage disposed of privately. Jackson's pulse quickened. That wasn't in the official report. No, it wasn't, Diana confirmed. And there's more. 3 months after Vanessa disappeared, Sovereign filed patents for a regenerative medicine technology. Their stock tripled. Later, back at the penthouse, Jackson found Amara waking from a nightmare. She sat up, eyes wild until she realized where she was. You remembered something? He asked, sitting beside her. She nodded, trembling slightly. They moved us at night. I saw a logo on some of the equipment. A red bird, a phoenix, Jackson murmured. Sovereign's symbol dot. In the days that followed, Jackson discovered Amara had a nearly photographic memory. She drew maps of the places she'd been held and faces of the people she'd seen. When she sketched the woman she believed was Vanessa, Jackson felt his breath catch. The resemblance was undeniable. One evening, Jeffrey Phillips, Jackson's longtime friend and board member, stopped by, unannounced. Jackson, we need to talk, he said, glancing uneasily at Amara, who sat reading on the sofa. In Jackson's office, Jeffrey didn't waste time. What are you doing? Rumor is, you've taken in some street kid who's feeding you fantasies about Vanessa. This looks bad. Really bad. It's not like that, Jeff. Yes, it is. You're a high-profile man, ripe for manipulation. Accusations, lawsuits. Amara's not manipulating me, Jackson said. She knows things no one else could. Things Vanessa never made public. Jeffrey sighed, placing a hand on his shoulder. Grief plays tricks on us. You've mentioned Vanessa at parties, after a few drinks. Who knows what you've let slip? Someone could have coached this girl. That night, restless, Jackson noticed a bulge behind a bookshelf. Investigating, he found a high-grade listening device. His security team swept the penthouse. 2 more were found. The next morning, Amara brought him her jacket. There's something in the pocket, she said, revealing a small tracker. Found another in my shoe. Their eyes met. Someone was watching them closely. Jackson called a meeting with his inner circle. He spun a story. Amara was a distant relative's child, staying with him during a family crisis. William Harris, head of security, nodded. We'll need documentation. I can have a background created today. Marcus, a senior advisor, adjusted. his tie nervously. Sir, the board is already uneasy. This won't help. Jackson's voice was calm but firm. The board cares about performance. Our quarterly profits are up 17%. That should be enough. Later, Jackson met Diana at a quiet cafe in Brooklyn. Amara sat beside him, eyes alert. I've been digging into similar disappearances, Diana said, sliding over a file. In the last 5 years, 8 wealthy women have vanished. 3 declared dead after accidents. 2 suicides, all without bodies. Others just disappeared. Jackson flipped through the pages, his blood turning cold. Any links to Sovereign? Nothing direct, Diana said. But 2 of their husbands sold their companies to Sovereign subsidiaries for far less than they were worth. Within a year of the disappearances. That's not a coincidence, Jackson muttered. There's more, Diana said. I'm seeing a wider pattern. Women from less visible communities, single mothers, immigrants, women no one talks about when they go missing. Amara finally spoke. There were all kinds of women where they kept us. Different backgrounds, but the ones like your wife, they were kept apart. That evening, Jackson took Amara to dinner at Lusk, one of Manhattan's finest. The Mata D's smile faltered at the sight of her, despite her designer dress and carefully styled hair. Your usual table, Mr. Reed? He asked, eyes flicking toward Amara with thinly veiled judgment. As they walked through the dining room, Jackson felt the stares, heard the whispers. They think you're crazy, Amara said softly, once they were seated. Or worse, they're making up stories about why you're with a black kid, Amara said, her voice mattered fact. Jackson frowned. How do you know that? Because people always assume the worst when someone who looks like me is with someone who looks like you. My grandmother taught me to recognize those looks. As if on cue, the waiter approached, barely disguising his disdain. He spoke only to Jackson, while setting Amara's menu down without making eye contact. Perhaps the young lady would prefer something from the children's menu, he suggested condescendingly. Amara will order from the regular menu, Jackson replied coldly, and I suggest you adjust your attitude before you come back. After an uncomfortable meal, Jackson noticed a black sedan with tinted windows parked across the street. When they left, the car pulled into traffic, maintaining a steady distance behind their Bentley. We're being followed, he said quietly, to William, who was driving. Without a word, William executed a series of evasive turns, confirming Jackson's suspicion when the sedan matched each move. Evasive protocols, sir? William asked. Yes, get Amara back to the penthouse. I'll create a diversion. What followed was a tense chase through Manhattan's streets. Jackson switched vehicles with a Reed Innovations employee while William transported Amara safely via an alternate route. Once at the penthouse, secured behind layers of protection, Jackson made a secure call to his FBI contact, Agent Michaels. I need to report surveillance, he said. We were followed tonight by an unknown party. But Michaels was dismissive. With respect, Mr. Reed, we've looked into 3 similar reports from you since your wife's accident. All turned out to be nothing. This is different, Jackson insisted. I believe an organized criminal element is targeting me because of an investigation I'm conducting. Are you hiring P is again? I'll remind you, interfering with an active federal case. What federal case? Jackson interrupted. Vanessa's death was ruled an accident years ago. There was a telling pause. I'm not at liberty to discuss ongoing investigations. Mr. Reed, I suggest you leave this to the proper authorities. Hanging up, Jackson realized either Michaels was stonewalling him, or there was indeed an active investigation he wasn't supposed to know about. The next morning, Diana arrived with unsettling news. 3 women, long presumed dead, had reportedly been seen in the last 2 years by credible witnesses. Every sighting had been dismissed as mistaken identity, but the descriptions were precise and came from people who knew them personally. She spread photos on the table. A business partner saw Liza Montgomery at a Swiss clinic. Rebecca Williams' sister spotted her in Singapore. A former nanny saw Catherine Zhang in Dubai. All dismissed. Jackson asked. Diana nodded. Witnesses discredited or paid off. I had to dig to find these reports. Meanwhile, Amara helped Jackson map the trafficking network from her memories of captivity. The first place they took me was here. She pointed at a spot on a hand-drawn map, 2 hours from New York, surrounded by woods, cross-referencing her description. Jackson found Sovereign Industries, owned a remote property near Kingston, NY. That's it, Amara exclaimed. I heard them say Kingston. Later, Marcus entered Jackson's office with concern. Double quotes, sir. People are talking. The board's asking about your absences, and rumors you've reopened Vanessa's case. Jackson studied him carefully. Marcus had served loyally for 8 years. But now, Jackson wasn't sure if his concern was genuine. The board should focus on our product launch. My personal life is not their concern. That weekend, Jackson and Diana drove to the Kingston site, leaving Amara behind under tight security. The compound, labeled Clearwater Wellness Center, matched Amara's description: remote, modern, and discreet. After dark, they breached the perimeter, undetected. Inside, they found the place hastily abandoned, stripped beds, dragged equipment, and a hidden room with restraints and cabinets for pharmaceuticals. This wasn't a wellness center, Jackson said grimly. It was a holding facility. Returning to Manhattan. Diana received an anonymous text. Surveillance photos of Jackson and Amara entering his building, time-stamped that morning. The message: watching you. What did Amara know that was making powerful people nervous? Comment 1 if you think Jackson should call the authorities, or 2 if he's right to handle this himself. Hit like if you'd keep digging after receiving a threat like that. And subscribe to find out whether Vanessa is alive, or if Jackson is walking into a trap. Monday morning, an emergency board meeting at Reed Innovations was tense. CFO Jeffrey Phillips, once Jackson's closest friend, spoke first. Jackson, your behavior has raised serious concerns. Unexplained absences, missed meetings, and your situation with the child people are worried about your state of mind. Jackson kept his face impassive, but assessed who might be working against him. My personal life isn't the board's business. The company's performing at record levels. Barbara Winters from legal spoke next. It becomes our business when it threatens company operations or exposes us to liability. This child's guardianship raises legal concerns. She's my distant relative, Jackson lied smoothly. Her stay is temporary. Jeffrey leaned in, voice lowered. Jack, you're chasing ghosts. Grief makes people vulnerable. Maybe take a leave of absence, get some help. You're suggesting I'm unstable. Jackson's voice was ice. The room fell silent. Jeffrey chose his words carefully. I'm suggesting trauma makes us see things. Jackson stood, buttoning his jacket. This meeting is over. Focus on our product launch, not my private life. As he left, he caught Jeffrey exchanging a glance with Marcus, another piece of the puzzle. Later, Jackson enrolled Amara at Westbridge Academy for safety. You need a normal life, he told her. Kids like that won't want me there, she muttered. You're smarter than most of them. Jackson replied after reviewing her high test scores. But the reality was worse than she expected. By her third day, she came home visibly upset. Same old thing, she said. The whispers, the questions. The teacher talking to me like I'm stupid. One kid asked if you bought me from some third world country. Jackson's fury rose. I'll speak to the headmaster. No, Amara said firmly. It'll just make it worse. I can handle it. We have bigger problems. The next day, Amara's history teacher recognized her from a missing children's alert. Concerned, she called Child Protective Services. By afternoon, CPS worker Elaine Donovan arrived with a police officer. Mr. Reedy. We've received a report, she announced. Jackson stayed calm, texting his legal team. The CPS worker's questions were laced with accusation. How exactly did you gain custody of this child? When she spoke to Amara, her tone turned patronizing. You can tell me the truth, sweetheart. Did Mr. Reed promise you things? By evening, Jackson's lawyer, Simone Washington, arrived with her team. This is a private family matter. She informed CPS, Mr. Reed is formalizing guardianship. Any insinuation of wrongdoing is false and defamatory. After they left, Simone faced Jackson. I can fight this, but you need to tell me the truth. No attorney-client privilege if you're covering up a crime. Jackson laid it all out. When he finished, Simone let out a long breath. That's a lot. And you believe it? I do, Jackson said. We have proof. But going public would endanger both Amara and, possibly, Vanessa. Simone nodded. Then let's move carefully. Meanwhile, document everything, every interaction with officials, every piece of evidence you collect. We may need all of it. As Jackson's legal team battled the CPS investigation, Diana pressed forward with her own research into sovereign industries. What she uncovered was startling. Connections to international wellness retreats in Singapore, Switzerland, and a private island near Malaysia. They operate under different names, she explained to Jackson, spreading out a chart of shell companies and subsidiaries. But the money always traces back to sovereign. They've poured billions into these places over the past 10 years. Jackson flipped through the glossy brochures. What kind of treatments do they offer? Rejuvenation? Therapy? Cellular regeneration? Age reversal? Diana recited. All vague, all exclusive. The minimum buy-in is $2 million by invitation only. Their client list is classified, but I got a look at an investor deck. They claim they've reversed aging biomarkers by up to 15 years in test subjects. Jackson's expression darkened. Test subjects, not patients. Exactly, Diana said grimly. And here's where it gets disturbing. Their breakthrough came 6 months after Vanessa disappeared. The research cites proprietary genetic material with unique regenerative properties. That night, someone hacked Jackson's private servers. The cyber attic was surgical targeting only files related to Amara and the investigation. Thanks to Jackson's strict offline security protocols, their most sensitive intel remained protected. But the message was clear. Whoever they were up against knew exactly what to look for. This wasn't random, William reported after analyzing the breach. The next morning over breakfast, Amara suddenly set down her fork. I remember something, she said. 2 guards were talking about transferring the asset to a facility in Singapore next month. That was about 2 weeks ago. Jackson's jaw tightened. The asset, did they say who they meant? They said the primary asset? From the way they talked, I think they meant your wife. She was treated differently from everyone else. Jackson immediately began arranging a trip to Singapore, using an upcoming tech conference as cover. But just as preparations began, William made a chilling discovery. Someone tampered with the private jet, he reported. The fuel line was compromised. It wouldn't have failed right away, but over the Pacific, you'd have been in serious trouble. The sabotage proved that someone wasn't just watching, they were actively working to stop them. Things escalated further when Michael Chin, Jackson's most trusted security expert, was found dead. The official cause, suicide. A note left behind claimed he had been leaking Reed innovation secrets for years. He was loyal to a fault, Jackson said. He wouldn't betray the company and he'd never take his own life. That evening, a chilling message appeared on Jackson's secure phone number known only to his closest circle. Stop digging, or you both disappear. Attached was a photo of Amara, taken outside her school that same day. Faced with mounting threats, Jackson had to make a choice. Protect Amara or keep digging for the truth about Vanessa, Before dawn broke over Manhattan, Jackson activated a contingency plan he'd never thought he'd use. "We need to disappear," he told Amara. She nodded calmly, packing essentials into a small backpack. William Harris arranged safe transport and new identities using channels outside Reed Innovation's usual infrastructure. Jackson quietly liquidated several $1 million, converting them into untraceable cryptocurrency and bearer bonds. Before leaving, he met Diana in Central Park. "Everyone else gets false info," he said, handing her an encrypted phone. "As far as the board knows, I'm taking Amara to our Zurich facility for trauma recovery." "And where are you actually going?" she asked. "You know I can't tell you that, but I'll contact you if we find something real." "Be careful," she said. "These people killed to keep their secrets." They traveled through 3 countries under aliases, finally arriving in Singapore. Jackson was impressed by how quickly Amara adapted, absorbing his lessons on maintaining cover and staying alert. "My grandmother always said, knowledge keeps you alive on the streets," she told him. At Changi Airport, Amara was pulled aside for random screening. Jackson noticed that a white family ahead of them passed through unbothered. "She your daughter?" the officer asked. "My niece," Jackson replied, calm and smooth. "Her mother is my sister." Later, Jackson used the incident as a lesson, but Amara wasn't surprised. "That kind of treatment is normal," she said. "My grandmother taught me stay calm, only answer what they ask, never show emotion. Anger gives them an excuse." At the Marina Bay Sands, posing as tech entrepreneur Michael Chin and his niece Lily, they made contact with Wei Jiang, a retired business partner with deep local connections. "I almost didn't believe it when I got your message," Wei said. "That's the point," Jackson replied. Wei helped identify 3 facilities matching Amara's description. The most promising, the Phoenix Longevity Institute on Sentosa Island. "Officially, they provide anti-aging treatments," Wei explained. "Unofficially, rumors say they do things illegal everywhere else. Experimental procedures, quiet disappearances." Jackson and Wei visited the facility, posing as investors. Amara watched from a distance. Security turned them away without a second thought. One guard muttered, in Mandarin Amara, later translated, "Another rich guy with his exotic pet project." The comment stung, a reminder that people saw Amara's presence, not as family, but as something darker. That night, Jackson hacked into the Phoenix Institute's systems. The footage revealed a clean high-end clinic, but nothing illegal, and no signs of captivity. "It's just one facility," Jackson reassured a disappointed Amara. They met with Min, a local journalist tracking similar disappearances. "Women come here for jobs, at luxury retreats," she explained, "then vanish. Families get vague answers, if any." Min traced several missing women to a private island off Malaysia owned by a sovereign-linked shell company. Then, a breakthrough. Reviewing surveillance footage, Amara pointed at the screen. "Her, that's Lydia. She was with me and Vanessa." They tracked Lydia to a sovereign-owned apartment complex. When she answered the door, fear filled her eyes. "How did you find me?" she whispered, pulling them inside. "Amara found me," Jackson said. "We're looking for my wife, Vanessa." "You're her husband," Lydia gasped. "They told us he died in the explosion, that no one was looking for her anymore. So she's alive?" Jackson asked, his voice tense. "I saw her 2 months ago. Then they moved her special transport to the island. That's where they send the ones with the genetic markers they want." A sound in the hallway made Lydia freeze. "You have to go. They monitor me, daily check-ins. If they find you." They left quickly, but Lydia had confirmed it. Vanessa was alive, and she was being held in the most secure, most secretive sovereign facility of all, back at their hotel. Jackson and Amara began planning their next move. Neither Jackson nor Amara noticed the small drone hovering outside their window, silently recording their conversation. Across the city, In a sleek high-rise office, Victor Reynolds watched the live feed, his expression tightening as he recognized Jackson through the disguise. How the hell did he uncover the Singapore connection? He snapped at his tenth security chief. And who was the girl? When informed that the child was Amara, former subject, who had escaped from the Clearwater facility, Reynolds slammed his fist against the polished mahogany desk. Activate immediate extraction. I want both contained before they even get close to that island. Use any means necessary. This ends now. Meanwhile, the early morning sun spilled across the hotel room as Jackson, Amara, and Wei huddled around maps of the Malaysian coastline. That's the island facility, Wei said, tapping a small speck 30 miles offshore. Officially, it's a private nature reserve run by the Phoenix Conservation Trust. Another sovereign shell, Jackson muttered, scanning satellite images. Best entry point. Wei traced a path across the water. I can arrange a boat with local fishermen. Quiet approach, under cover of night. Main security is centered around the dock and helipad, but this southern cove here, it might be our blind spot. Amara leaned in. There's a supply entrance on this side. Lydia said deliveries use it fewer guards, less oversight. Their planning was interrupted by a call on Jackson's encrypted Reed Innovations phone. Marcus's voice was sharp with urgency. Sir, you need to get back to New York. Emergency board meeting in 24 hours. Jeffrey's making a move. Jackson stiffened. What kind of move? He's accusing you of mental instability. Claims you've become obsessed with conspiracies about Vanessa. He's got surveillance, manipulated photos, and he's implying your relationship with Amara is inappropriate. That you might be involved in trafficking. That's outrageous, Jackson hissed, pacing. What's he using as evidence? Doctored images, conversations pulled out of context. He's spinning it to make you look like a delusional predator. If you don't show up to defend yourself, the board will vote to remove you on medical grounds. Jackson's jaw tightened. Book the jet, I'm coming. As he ended the call, he turned to Amara and Wei. We have to go back to New York's jet. Long enough to stop this. Amara's eyes darkened. You're leaving me behind. It's for your safety, Jackson said. Wei and May will protect you. Continue prepping for the island. I'll be back in 48 hours. Wei nodded. Be safe. My home is locked down. Jackson knelt beside Amara. I promise, I'll come back. We'll find Vanessa together. She searched his face. I believe you. Jackson's jet touched down outside New York at dawn. A process server greeted him on the tarmac, delivering a temporary restraining order accusations of child endangerment and trafficking. By the time his car reached Manhattan, headlines were everywhere. Talk shows dissected grainy photos and half-truths, a tech billionaire, and a mysterious black child in his penthouse. The racial insinuations were unmistakable. At Reed Innovations, Jeffrey was already waiting in Jackson's office, mask of concern perfectly in place. Jack, thank God you're back. Things escalated. Spare me. Jackson cut him off. Why, Jeff? 20 years. And this is how you repay me. Jeffrey's act slipped. This isn't personal. The board has to act. Your behavior, my behavior. You're accusing me of trafficking? Jeffrey raised his hands. I just presented the facts. The media interpreted them. Jackson's voice dropped. Lethal. What did Victor Reynolds offer you? A board seat at Sovereign? Or blackmail? For a moment, Jeffrey faltered. Get help, Jack, before you lose everything. After he left, Diana entered through the back. Jeffrey's been meeting Reynolds for months, she said, handing Jackson photos. The last one was 3 days ago. Private estate in Connecticut. He's compromised, Jackson said grimly. Maybe he always was, Diana added. They've frozen your access funds files, everything. Jackson nodded. He'd anticipated this. Backup systems were already in place. That evening, Jackson's secure line rang. May's voice was tense. There was an attempt to take Amara from Wei's home. 3 men. She got away using the escape protocol you taught her. She's safe, for now. But Jackson, they knew exactly where she'd be. Someone leaked our plans. Before he could respond, another phone buzzed. An anonymous video file. It showed the attempted abduction, the men, their tactics, Amara's escape. The lead attacker looked directly into the camera. "Tell Reed we're coming." Moments later, Jackson's building alarm blared. Surveillance showed NYPD officers entering the lobby accompanied by Jeffrey and 2 suited men. Switching feeds to Marcus's office, Jackson froze. Marcus was slumped over his desk, a pool of blood soaking through the reports. His phone rang. "Sir," his head of security warned, "they're coming with a warrant. Marcus Phillips was found dead. They claim you killed him." "That's impossible," Jackson said. "They have surveillance showing you entering the office. The murder weapon was found in your private elevator. It was a setup perfectly timed, perfectly executed." Jackson had seconds. He made his decision. He activated Contingency Omega. A hidden passage behind his library led to an old service shaft, bypassing all surveillance. Jackson grabbed a go bag with cash, IDs, encrypted tech, and a Glock. As police stormed his penthouse, he emerged 6 blocks away, disguised as a janitor. For 48 hours, he vanished into the underground safe houses, burner phones, back alley routes. News painted him as a fugitive, a killer, a trafficker, a man gone mad. On the 3rd day, he met Diana in an abandoned Brooklyn warehouse. "They froze everything," she said. "Jeffrey's interim CEO, and the footage, I got it too. Agent Michaels. He's running a quiet investigation. He thinks you're being set up." "Good. What about Amara?" "Still safe. But security around the islands doubled. They know you're coming. They don't know when." Within a week, Jackson used a web of contacts to reach Southeast Asia disguised, invisible. Cargo, ships, private boats, false identities. He landed in Kuala Lumpur, then made contact through an encrypted channel. Wei sent coordinates. At a small coastal safe house, the door burst open. "Jackson," Amara cried, launching herself into his arms. He caught her, the weight of the world momentarily lifted. "I told you I'd be back," he whispered, and the war for truth, the final battle for Vanessa, Amara, and justice was just beginning. "You came back," she whispered against his chest. "You actually came back." "I promised I would," Jackson replied simply. The weight of that promise, so small, yet monumental to a child who had known only abandonment, hung in the air. Wei quickly brought them up to speed. Island security had tightened, but they'd identified a possible entry point. A contact of his owned a supply vessel, servicing the facility twice a week. They'd hide aboard during the next delivery. Meanwhile, in New York, Agent Michaels was beginning to doubt the official story. Diana's evidence raised serious questions about Jackson's guilt, and Michael's own investigation uncovered alarming discrepancies. The surveillance footage of Jackson entering Marcus's office had been expertly doctored. The fingerprints on the murder weapon were suspiciously perfect, too perfect. More damning was Marcus's investigation into financial transfers between Jeffrey Phillips and offshore accounts tied to sovereign industries in the weeks before his death. "This goes beyond a simple frame-up," Michaels told Diana during a covert meeting. "Reed may have uncovered something far bigger. These patterns match cases we've been tracking: medical experiments, high-level corruption, even human trafficking." On the morning of the operation, Jackson, Amara, and Wei slipped aboard the supply vessel before dawn, hiding among crates bound for the island facility. "Stick to the plan," Jackson told Amara as they huddled in the cramped space. "Stay with me. If we get separated, activate the emergency beacon and wait at the rendezvous point." Amara nodded, then hesitated. "What if she doesn't remember you?" Lydia said. "They do things to people's minds." Jackson had considered this. "Then we'll help her remember. And if she can't, we'll start over." What matters is getting her out, no matter what condition she's in. After a 4-hour voyage across rough seas, they caught their first glimpse of the island, a sprawling complex of white buildings nestled in tropical vegetation, ringed with cutting-edge security. When the boat docked at the service pier, Jackson, Amara, and Wei slipped ashore unnoticed during the commotion of unloading. "Security's tighter than expected," Wei whispered as they observed patrol rotations. "More guards than last time." Using patience and Amara's photographic memory, they mapped out routines and blind spots. That evening, as staff gathered in the dining hall, they made their move. Slipping through service corridors and maintenance tunnels, inside, the truth was worse than Jackson had imagined. The supposed wellness retreat was in fact a secret research facility working on radical life extension. Through observation windows, they saw wealthy clients undergoing treatments using biological materials harvested from younger subjects. "Those people," Amara whispered, pointing to sedated individuals on gurneys. "They look like the women from Clearwater. And there are new kids too." Jackson felt the truth hit like a punch. This wasn't just trafficking, it was medical harvesting. People were being used as raw material to buy the rich more years. Following Amara's directions toward a high-security wing where Vanessa might be held, a security camera caught sight of them. Alarms blared instantly. "They've spotted us," Wei warned. "Move." They sprinted through the corridors, dodging response teams. At a junction, guards closed in from both directions. "This way," Wei shouted, shoving Jackson and Amara into a side passage. "Find your wife. I'll hold them off." The last thing Jackson saw was Wei, standing firm, gun drawn. Gunfire echoed as they fled. They reached the high-security wing, used a guard's access card, and entered a corridor lined with medical chambers. Inside each was a woman, sedated, connected to complex systems extracting biological material. There, Amara pointed. At the end of the corridor was a chamber holding Vanessa thinner, older, but unmistakably her dot. Jackson rushed to her, overwhelmed. As he tried to interpret the medical systems, both ends of the corridor slid open. Armed guards stormed in. At their center stood Victor Reynolds, Sovereign's CEO.com, and impeccably dressed. "Well, Mr. Reed," Reynolds said smoothly, "I must admit I'm impressed. Most wouldn't come this far, let alone for the word of a child." He glanced at Amara. "Though this particular child has caused us considerable inconvenience." Jackson stepped in front of her, hand near his concealed weapon. "It's over, Reynolds. I found Vanessa. This entire operation is going to be exposed." Reynolds gave a thin smile. "Is it? You're a fugitive. Your company's under new leadership. No one's coming to save you. Surrender, and maybe you survive." The silence stretched as Jackson weighed their limited options. Reynolds studied him, then added, "In another life, I might have invited you to join us. Your work at Reed Innovations shows true vision." "This isn't innovation," Jackson shot back. "It's exploitation. It's murder." Reynolds sighed, disappointed. "Progress requires sacrifice. Our treatments could extend life by decades. Your wife Vanessa has a 1 in a billion genetic profile that supercharges regeneration. Her loss would set our research back by years." Amara subtly shifted position, sensing Jackson's plan. "Why not use volunteers?" Jackson challenged. "Pay donors. Follow the law." "We tried," Reynolds said, amused. "But the right genes are too rare. Regulations too slow. Most of these people," he gestured to the chambers, "were already forgotten. Vanessa was just an unfortunate exception. She found discrepancies in her records, investigated too far. We had no choice." "The yacht explosion," Jackson whispered. "You faked her death. No body to recover," Reynolds confirmed. "A tidy solution." As he checked his watch, Jackson gave Amara a near-invisible nod. He activated a compact EMP device hidden in his pocket. The lights flickered and died. Alarms cut out. Equipment went dark. In the chaos, Jackson grabbed Amara and dove through a side door. Guards fired blindly behind them, emergency powers kicking in soon. Jackson warned as they ran. We circle back once their focus shifts. As predicted, backup lighting soon bathed the facility in red. Using Amara's memory, they found another route to the medical wing. The chambers had backup power. The EMP had disabled security, not life support. They re-entered through a maintenance hatch. Vanessa's chamber was unguarded. She's alive, Jackson confirmed, but heavily sedated. They're harvesting cellular material. I'll stabilize her, but we can't wake her here. He worked quickly, disabling non-essential systems. Someone's coming, Amara whispered. Before they could hide, the door slid open and Wei appeared, bloodied, but alive. You're a hard man to find, he said with a pained grin. Let's go. Together, they loaded Vanessa onto a transport gurney. Wei led them to a loading dock, where emergency vehicles gathered to respond to a fire he had set on the far side of the facility. We can use the confusion, Wei said. My contacts at the secondary dock. But as they turned a corner, Victor Reynolds stood waiting, flanked by armed guards. This time, he held a pistol. This ends now, he said coldly. You've destroyed millions in equipment. Years of work. I won't let you leave. Jackson stepped in front of Vanessa. You're right. It ends here. But not how you think. You have no way out, Reynolds scoffed. Even if you escaped, the world still believes you're a killer. Maybe, Jackson replied. But that'll change once they see what's happening here. A flicker of doubt crossed Reynolds' face. What are you talking about? Jackson smiled grimly. Did you think I came without insurance? Everything that's happened, your confession. This facility's all been transmitted to secure servers. Reynolds' expression faltered. You're bluffing. No data leaves this island undetected. Not through your systems, Jackson, said Buttreed. Innovations developed quantum encrypted satellite relays years ago. Technology Vanessa was working on before you took her. Undetectable, It wasn't entirely truth. The transmission was incomplete, but the doubt had taken root. Even if it's real, Reynolds said slowly, you'll be destroyed too. Your name, your company, everything you've built. Jackson met his gaze, steady and resolute. Some things are worth losing everything for. Vanessa, the victims, justice. Monsters like you don't get to treat human beings like commodities forever, Jackson said, standing firm. The tense standoff inside the facility was shattered by a sudden alarm blaring across the compound. Sir, one of Reynolds' security agents barked. Multiple aircraft are approaching the island. Unscheduled. No response to our hails. Reynolds' face went pale. Who are they? Unknown, but they're using federal clearance codes. They've declared an official operation in progress. For the first time, Reynolds looked genuinely rattled. Jackson seized the moment. Looks like my insurance policy worked better than I expected. He hadn't known whether Agent Michaels would act on the information he'd sent. But now, with helicopters inbound, the impossible seemed to be happening. Last chance, Reynolds, Jackson said, voice steady. Stand down, face justice, or go out in a blaze of gunfire with federal agents added to your rap sheet. Reynolds' mask cracked. This isn't over, he snarled, slowly backing toward an exit, still holding his weapon steady. Sovereign Industries has connections you can't even imagine. Governments, courts, military brass. They all have a stake in our research. You think a few agents will change that? The growing roar of rotor blades outside seemed to answer him. Reynolds made his choice. Engage. He shouted at his men, then bolted through a side exit as chaos erupted behind him. Gunfire ripped through the corridor as his security team opened fire. Jackson, Amara, and Wei dove for cover behind a steel-framed gurney. Bullets sparked off nearby walls. "We need to move," Wei yelled over the gunfire. "Emergency med evac point this way." Together, they rushed Vanessa's gurney down the hallway. Jackson pushed, Amara ducked beside them, and Wei covered their flank. Bullets pinged around them, but somehow they kept moving. Jackson's mind was laser-focused, not on his reputation, not on his company, but on the people who mattered. Vanessa, Amara, the others, who needed saving. Even if they got out, the road ahead would be brutal. But for the first time in 5 years, Jackson felt something bloom in his chest again. Hope. 2 weeks later, the rhythmic beeping of medical monitors filled a quiet hospital room in New York. Vanessa lay unconscious, but stable, surrounded by the best care Jackson's wealth and his new allies could provide. Jackson sat at her bedside, gently holding her hand. Across from him, Amara sat silently, never taking her eyes off the woman who had once saved her life. "The neurologist says her brain activity is increasing," Jackson told Amara softly. "She's starting to respond to stimuli. It's a good sign." Amara nodded. "She helped me when no one else did. Now, we're helping her." Though Vanessa remained sedated, a quiet bond had grown between her and the girl, who risked everything to tell the truth. The last 2 weeks had been a whirlwind of revelations. The aircraft had belonged to a joint FBI-Interpol task force, led by Agent Michaels. Diana had persuaded him to launch a raid based on the evidence Jackson had smuggled out. What they found on the island was worse than anyone had imagined. Dozens of captives, detailed records, genetic experiments disguised as medical research, and clear links to sovereign industries, publicly traded divisions. "You helped us connect the final dots," Michaels had told Jackson aboard the extraction vessel. "We've been tracking a pattern of disappearances for 3 years, linked to exclusive clinics, genetic targeting, and elite donors with a lot to lose. Your wife's case broke it open." Reynolds escaped in a private chopper, but not for long. International warrants were issued within 48 hours. Back in Manhattan, the story took another sharp turn. The murder charges against Jackson once headline news collapsed after suppressed security footage was recovered. It showed Jeffrey Phillips, not Jackson, entering Marcus's office at the time of the murder, and later planting evidence in Jackson's elevator. Jeffrey was arrested, trying to flee the country. Several board members were indicted alongside him for their involvement in both the murder and the corporate cover-up. The remaining board unanimously reinstated Jackson as CEO of Reed Innovations. But victory came with shadows. Vanessa's recovery was uncertain. Years of sedation and experimentation had taken a toll. The doctors were cautious but hopeful, and Reynolds, he was just one piece of a larger, darker machine. "This isn't over," Diana had warned during a secure video briefing. Reynolds had powerful clients, officials, judges, even military contractors. They've all benefited from Sovereign's work, and they're not going to let it fall quietly. Already, media outlets were spinning. Jackson's name was cleared legally, but rumors persisted, some outlets subtly casting suspicion on his relationship with Amara, playing into racial biases and class narratives. Jackson knew the fight wasn't over, but this time, he wouldn't face it alone. And this time, he had something stronger than reputation to protect. He had family, he had truth, he had purpose. What would you have done in Jackson's position? Would you have believed a 10-year-old girl with an impossible story? Or dismissed her as delusional? Comment below with your thoughts. If this story of courage, truth, and resistance moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more narratives that challenge assumptions and celebrate the strength of the human spirit. And don't forget to share this story with someone who needs to be reminded. Sometimes, truth comes from the most unexpected voices. This journey wasn't just about uncovering a global conspiracy. It was about something deeper, the power of belief, the cost of silence, and the transformative strength of trust. When Amara, a young black girl, told her story, The world around her responded not with empathy, but with suspicion. Society's reflex to distrust her wasn't based on facts. It was rooted in racial prejudice and age bias. She was dismissed, doubted, even watched with contempt, but her voice, soft, clear, and unrelenting, became the catalyst that unraveled a multinational web of corruption and exploitation. Her courage proved what should never be. In doubt, that truth doesn't depend on who speaks it, but on who's willing to listen. This story exposes the everyday discrimination that creates blind spots in our institutions and our minds. The same bias that tried to silence Amara was later used to discredit Jackson, because challenging the system is always threatening to those who benefit from it. But it also shows us another path. Jackson, a man of privilege, didn't retreat into comfort. He used his influence to amplify the voice no one wanted to hear. He believed Amara not because it was easy, but because it was right, and in doing so, he didn't just rescue his wife. He helped build something greater, a foundation for justice, a mission that reached beyond his own loss, to lift others out of silence and fear. Through their journey, we're reminded of something vital. The fight for truth is never neutral. It's shaped by whose voices we choose to hear and whose we ignore. So we ask you, what would you risk to uncover the truth when the world has already written its version? Have you ever been dismissed, doubted, or disbelieved because of who you are? Have you ever chosen to believe someone when everyone else turned away? Tell us your story in the comments. Let your voice be heard, and if this narrative stirred something in you, if it challenged your thinking or deepened your empathy, like, subscribe, and share this story, because someone out there needs to be reminded. The most powerful truth-tellers often come from the places we're taught to ignore, and sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply choosing to believe. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey from darkness to light, from silence to truth.